when you put aside what your professor wants from you, when you put aside what your peers wants from you, when you put aside what your family wants from you, what is it that you want? What is it that it's really motivating for you? Because that's ultimately the only thing that can persist for a long time. Direction versus destination. Many of us see PhD as the end stop, as the end goal where we are headed, and then we will figure out what we are going to do next. Whereas if we have a direction, PhD is just one stop on the way. So if you have a direction, there's also a compass, whether you are headed in the right way or you are sidetracked. And why I believe it's important to observe a PhD as a direction and not a destination is also because of the sense of fulfillment that each of us will get if we observe it like that. It also inspires a different kind of motivation. It also sets the tone of how we're going to approach the PhD. So once you start the PhD, you already have a sense of a direction where you want to go. You know if you want to continue the academic track, so you are doing a PhD in order to get to a postdoc, to assistant professor, associate full professor, or you know that you want to spend a limited amount of time just researching one topic of your interest, that you're curious, you want to really go into the depths and do this for yourself and then do something else. Or you want to get to specific people. Maybe you want to get to a specific country. Your goal is to come to a specific country, to meet specific people, and that's why you have decided to do this and to build your network from there on. In any case, PhD is just a stop on this journey, on this big direction where you're headed. So your motivation is larger than just a PhD. This also means if things don't go exactly the way you planned the PhD to go, it's also okay that something else is going to come up and you are going to accommodate, and you can still stay on the same direction even though the PhD didn't go the way you wanted. So for example, imagine publishing in a high impact journal. You will realize, so you have this idea, you want to publish in a high impact journal, but there is a set of things that need to happen. There's a certain skill set that you need to acquire in order to get to this point. And maybe 1 year before the official end of your PhD, you realize that this is becoming slightly more difficult to achieve. The time is running up. So maybe you start feeling pressure. And you might wonder, okay, shall I readjust my expectations? Shall I lower them? Shall I aim for publishing in a lower impact journal and just say, okay, I'm going to be satisfied with that? There is no right or wrong answer. So I'm just going to shed some light on different options, how I see it, but it goes way deeper than this. The ideal way would be to have the direction in mind that will give you the motivation. So you still, like, the time is limited, but you are still getting towards the objective of wanting to publish in a high impact journal. Not because of the fact that you are just because you're going to publish in a high impact journal, but because of the fact of the skill set that you're going to acquire on this journey of learning what it takes to publish in a high impact journal. It doesn't happen overnight, so it's of course, it's a track that needs to be followed. And well, can happen overnight if you are like in a lucky situation and then it's a lucky shot, but that if you want to repeat the experience, you don't have the skill set to do it. So like eventually it's gonna catch up with you. So if you are still focused on saying, I'm going to publish in a high impact journal, but you stay unattached to the outcome, and you are motivated and you are curious and you're exploring what does it take, so you start thinking about different options, you start seeing what other people are publishing, you start trying to find blind spots that you are not seeing, that researchers are not seeing, where you can contribute, where you can give your where you can put like a dent. where you can make an impact, and staying unattached to the outcome is the most important. So if you are going to beat yourself up over the fact that this still did not happen when you finished your PhD, and you're only focused on the end goal and the end result and not what you have achieved along the way, then of course you're going to be frustrated. But if you can see what have you learned along the way, what is the skill set that you have acquired, how far you have come, and realizing that maybe it didn't happen during your PhD. If you're continuing doing a postdoc, now you are one step or a couple of steps or many steps closer to really getting there. Maybe this can happen even going to the industry. Some people, even after their PhD, they're very keen on finishing some results, so they continue working on that, even though it's very difficult continuing working in something that at this point is your hobby and your work. But yeah, nothing is impossible. So it's also the mindset that we acquire when we're focused only on the goal, then we're gonna really beat ourselves up and not be focused on what we are achieving along the way. Okay, like how far I have come in this skill set that I have acquired. And staying unattached to the outcome will allow us to open our mind. When we are not frustrated, then we can be creative, we can look for new solutions, we can explore, we are open to many more possibilities. This also means that there are going to be some things along the way that are going to show up and you could not even imagine. So maybe you imagine that you are going to publish in a high impact journal, but it turns out to be a patent. Why not? Or you imagine a specific high impact journal, but it happens to be another one, or you get an invited talk to a conference, or there are many different options that if we are fixated on one specific thing, how things need to happen, then sometimes it's also like a pushing and things don't go always how we imagined or how we planned them. And if we look at the other scenario, if you would lower your expectations and say, okay, I'm going to publish in a lower impact journal, then I'm afraid that there's a lack of motivation, and behind all of that there is also a distrust in yourself, saying, okay, somewhere in the back of your mind saying, I was not capable of publishing in a high impact journal. So you carry this frustration and grief over your previous very big motivation that you had, that you wanted to pursue, that you wanted to go forward. And this one is even demotivating you. So the amount of energy that you're going to put into being creative, being open, being explorative is not going to be the same. Of course, this is much complex that I'm trying to explain here, just touching upon things on the surface. But yeah, I'm very curious to discuss with people one-on-one, with you one-on-one, how that really plays out for you, because we all have a different construction in our brain, what we have imagined, how we are conditioned, and etc., that it promotes different feelings with all of us. Again, I really want to emphasize that what happens when you stay unattached to the outcome, that you are still pursuing and you are still staying motivated towards your really like some inner desire that you have, and you going in that direction where things motivate you, is that you are slowly becoming that person who is capable of publishing in a high impact journal. And maybe it doesn't happen during your PhD again, but you are getting everything that is needed for it to happen. And choosing the direction is related also to how motivated you are going to be. So this is very personal. I invite you also to think, what is your biggest motivation? What is something that, your soul lightens up when you talk about it, when you hear about it, when you think about it, and you want to perform action in order to get there? This is something that can be useful for you. And it's important also to realize that what is it, like when you put aside what your professor wants from you, when you put aside what your peers wants from you, when you put aside what your family wants from you, what is it that you want? What is it that it's really motivating for you? Because that's ultimately the only thing that can persist for a long time. So for me, one of the biggest motivations talking about this publishing topic was travel. I did not want to publish in journals because I wanted to travel. So simple as that. For me, it really was specific. I want to publish on conferences because that allows me to go, to present my work, to talk about it, to meet new people, to see new places, to explore so much more for me, that brought me much more value than publishing in a journal. It's a different skill set, of course. I did publish in journal as well, but that did not bring me the amount of motivation that publishing for a conference did. And that's also part of the reason why I chose my PhD, because, initially, I never saw myself in academia. I did not want to pursue an academic track. So to this day, I'm still faithful to that. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, but you never know. So for me, it was clear that I want to do research for a couple of years on a specific topic and dedicate my time to that, learn the research methodology, and also get access to the EU labor market, because I come from a country that comes from non-EU, so that was also an easier way in. But then, of course, I wanted to work on something that is motivating for me. I didn't want to come to EU labor market at any cost. I wanted to make it fun for me. So what was fun and interesting is working on 3-5 integrated photonics. So this is my background. And I spoke with a lot of people and asked for names, who are the biggest names, who are the biggest groups and professors in this field. So when I got a list of names, then I started my research, and that's how I ended up coming to Eindhoven. So to top it all off, there was this project that was a collaboration between the Netherlands and France. And I remember I was hesitating, do I go for it or not? Because on one side, there are a lot of things lost when you need to move between the two countries. So of course, like, relationships with people become more complicated, starting things all over every time when you move, it's a very tough one. Also, the continuity in work is difficult when you need to think about moving 5 times in 4 years. It's more difficult than when you are staying in one place and you can focus all your energy only on work aspect. So I knew this, but still, the more motivating fact for me was going to see 2 different countries. So that's what I applied for, and that's what I pursued in the end. So during my master's studies, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go to industry. To this day, I never worked 100% in the industry. And why? Because at that point, when I imagined that, okay, I'm gonna go to the industry, I did not see the possibilities that there are that are not going to the industry. So I did not see this possibility of working still in academia, but not following the academic track. So my job now still involves traveling, involves interaction with a lot of people, involves being very creative and trying to matchmake people and think of new opportunities, and still very much in the technical domain. So I could not see from that point that this opportunity existed because I didn't see it in my environment. Only when I got outside of that specific environment, then I saw other possibilities. But it is still the direction of not staying in the academia. So let's say the original direction is the same, and there are opportunities on the way that popped up that I never could have imagined. So I'm curious if you think about your direction, if you think about your motivation, what is it that lies for you beyond the PhD?